Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to another one of these Irish Stew videos where I talk about a bunch of stuff, not all of it necessarily book-related, in fact, most of it not. I stopped doing these for a little while and heard from quite a few of you that you wanted them back, and then I brought it back yesterday and heard from even more people saying yay. So that is rather odd, but I'm perfectly willing to go with the flow. So we are going to talk about whatever caught my attention this time around, and we will break things down as we usually do with the world, and then the United States, my own country, and then YouTube, broader YouTube, since I am terminally online and live online, and then BookTube, and then finally me, myself. And since it's Monday, it's a beautiful, lovely, sharp, sunny, cool Monday here in Boston. I thought we would ease into the week. This week is going to have horrible, horrible news items. Horrible things to pay attention to. I thought we'd pay attention to mostly things that have a sunny upside to them at least a bit. And so if we start with the world, we can once again, the only way that you're going to find a story, a sunny, upbeat story, connected with the world is if you leave Earth. Earth is currently in an unbelievably dystopian era, and the only reason that I don't say that this is the end of the story is because the dystopia is going to get much, much worse. Much worse. Your great-grandchildren are going to be slaves of Mark Zuckerberg's grandchildren. Your great-grandchildren, and I'm not talking about, well, I'm a wage slave or I'm a debt slave or I feel like I can't take a vacation, I'll never afford a house. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually being owned by techno-feudal overlords. But that's way in the future, and that's the world. So for the world segment, in order to be upbeat, we're going to leave the world. We're going to go to the Perseverance rover on Mars, which is found much earlier in the year. It found a fragment of a meteorite next to the Jezero crater, where it is currently exploring. This is a big, complicated rover that is performing above expectations, as the last few rovers have done, and which is just roaming around on our neighbor planet, just learning all sorts of stuff, taking all sorts of samples and whatnot, conducting all the kinds of experiments that were built into it, and communicating those results back to scientists at NASA. 9/10 of whom have been illegally fired by Elon Musk when Donald Trump illegally installed him as part of a government efficiency agency with Nazi teenagers as his underlings, also illegally hired, and just let him go at the federal government. The combination of his blindness and his stupidity, and don't worry, Elon Musk is coming up again in this video, but the combination of Musk's blindness and stupidity, and also the cupidity and outright illegal behavior of his Nazi minions, who've copied all of the personal data, the technical government financial data, the Social Security data and all, of every American. They have all that information. A normal working government would send agents to their homes unannounced, unexpected, and find them in possession of all that data, which would get every one of them a life sentence that would never see the light of day again. That is not just a felony, it's an incredibly serious felony, and they all have it. They joke about it. They all have your information, my information, banking, Social Security, everything. They raided the government illegally when they were allowed to do so because Donald Trump just said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And the combination of all that they did with Doge ended up costing billions more than it saved. So there was never a question of government efficiency. But back in September and early October, these Nazi minions fired most of the senior astronomers and experienced people at NASA. The ones that remained have a lot of experience and were told in meetings and emails that will come to light at a future Nuremberg. It won't happen in this country, but they will come to light. They are not eradicated. They will be presented. Those scientists were told, you can keep your job and do a nominal amount of work, but you have to say whenever asked that the boss is actually really good at astronomy, maybe better than all of us eggheads. Some kept their jobs like that, but it's been that long that they've been analyzing this material from Perseverance rover. So we're only just now getting images and also data from this meteorite fragment that Perseverance found on Mars, meaning that, example, that not the first either, that Mars is being pelted with I was going to say extraterrestrial, but I guess it would be extra Martian objects still, but it is happening. Really fascinating. I'm a sucker for this sort of thing anyway. It broke my heart when an illiterate, illegal alien robber baron, a moron like Elon Musk, was just allowed to attack NASA. That just broke my heart. Of course, he attacked a lot of other things too, so you got a heartbreak to go around. But the data is still there, and the scientists are still working on it, and I think it's fascinating. Who knows where this thing came from? Probably the asteroid belt, but you don't know for sure. I just think it's fascinating. So I had to include that for the world segment, which is out of the world segment. But for the U.S. segment, we can return to Elon Musk. And in this case, it's a rare story involving Elon Musk that will put a smile on your face. And from the oddest possible source. The writer, Joyce Carol Oates, one of our greatest living writers, is still on Twitter, even though Musk bought it and junked it and changed its name and Nazified it. Twitter is a Nazi platform now. It's extremely welcoming to Nazis. Joyce Carol Oates has stayed on it, and at one point recently, she decided to just make the kind of a post that only a really skilled writer could do. The kind of a post about Elon Musk that did not have any hatred in it, which where anybody else tweeting about him, including myself, would get all hung up. Instead, it was an analysis of him as though he were a fictional character, in which Joyce Carol Oates points out in elegant language. Boy, when she's on, she's really on. She points out, you can find it. If you Google this, you'll get the tweet that she posted. She points out in simple, elegant brushstrokes what an empty husk of a creature he is. Where not just his posts on his own Nazi website, but also all of his public utterances anywhere else, all video interviews, anything like that, how empty they are of anything human. How barren and empty they are. I don't think, if I remember correctly, I should have copied out her tweet so I could read it to you, but I don't think that she ever actually goes the extra step of saying that he should be pitied. That's good, because he shouldn't be. But boy, oh boy, in its own writerly way, it was as merciless gets. It's a good reminder, apart from any other commentary that you might read on the subject, it's a good reminder that writers get the last word. They do, even if you kill them. Writers get the last word, and they know how to use the language. I love the story, and so it put a smile on my face, even though it involved one of the most evil men in the world, and also brainless. That's the incredible, bitter irony of this era that we are in, is that we are ruled by incredibly evil men, and they're all dumb. They're all dumb. You look at the stereotypical example of a supervillain who is sophisticated and articulate and has classical music playing in the background while he plots the death of the world. Longingly. You look at those fictional examples longingly, because the men who are ruining this world are dumb. But anyway, speaking of dumb people, we can move on to broader YouTube, which involves a class of creature that I have always referred to as IPOC, International Pieces of Crap, or Internet Pieces of Crap. And an Internet piece of crap looks human, but they aren't human. They're full-blown dopamine addict sociopath. And they have been for a long, long time. So it's not just that they are a sociopath, it's that they have built an entire world around themselves made of sociopathy. And they routinely consider that world to be reality. And I'm sure that if you give a moment's thought, you will come, several examples of IPOCs will come to mind. Several internet pieces of crap will come to mind. But I'm not really talking here about people who occasionally act like pieces of crap on the internet. That is not an internet piece of crap. An internet piece of crap is a sociopath who was made by the internet. They don't have any existence outside the internet, outside of some kind of social media, Vine at the beginning, or Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is. They don't exist outside of that. And you only have, for confirmation of that, you only have to see the rare video footage of them trying to exist outside of that. It looks ridiculous. They're like some sort of weird Venusian sauropod. They don't even know how to walk. I have a list of IPOCs that I intensely, virulently hate. They do nothing but destroy. lives around them, destroy neighborhoods around them. They do it gleefully. They do it for clicks. And they do it gleefully. And the platforms that they do it for don't tend to punish them. That's why they get away with it. If the platforms where they make millions and millions of dollars had any kind of a policed ethical clause, then the first time they hurt a friend, intentionally hurt a friend, in other words, somebody's going to leave a scar so that they can film it for content, the first time that they groped or assaulted someone on camera in public just so they could say it was a social experiment, the first time they did something like that, they would be off the platform, regardless of what else happened to them. They wouldn't be able to make any money doing that anymore. They can't make any money any other way because they are IPOCs. They're not just pox. They're not just pieces of crap. They're internet pieces of crap. They exist only through the internet and cannot function anywhere else. They don't have any social skills. They're sociopaths. I am amazed, since the pattern has repeated itself so many times and is so clear, I'm amazed that law enforcement organizations throughout this country don't have a formal protocol, a watch list for IPOCs. They do, some of those law enforcement organizations do have at least a rough kind of watch list for psychopaths, for actual serial killers and whatnot. There are some telltale signs. There will almost always be rampant substance abuse. There will almost always be strained or annihilated relationships with parents. There will almost always be a steadily increasing pattern of torturing and killing animals. You look at those things, you notice those things, if you catch them, well, probably, statistically speaking, you have probably caught a serial killer before they actually go on to do their crimes. You can submit them for incarceration, first of all, involuntary incarceration, but also serious psychological help, pharmaceutical psychological help, to stop them from becoming the monster that they are otherwise certainly going to become. Well, IPOCs are the same way. Sociopaths aren't that much better than psychopaths. They're still going to hurt people. There's no doubt about it at all, because they are constantly upping the game for clicks and views, for the lols, for the dopamine hit. They're constantly doing that. And the algorithms of the various websites where they've made their millions and millions of dollars just encourage them to do that. So if you hurt a friend of yours, so that they have a scar that they're going to wear for the rest of their life, you hurt a friend of yours on camera, well, okay, that got you really, really good views. Let's say that you film a suicide victim, someone hanging from a tree in a Japanese forest. And that gets you boffo views. It gets you to explode. Well, okay, the price that you have to pay for either of those things, for anything like that, is a YouTube fake apology. You go to one of the numerous organizations that make YouTube fake apologies. They charge you depending on the level of insincerity, because you want to be legendary in your fake apology as well. You want to be legendary. You want to be fake tears is the lowest level. The word accountability over and over again might be a more expensive level. Of course, the most expensive level of all of a YouTube fake apology involves a ukulele. But it's never going to be sincere. No one is thinking that it's sincere. These organizations, these services are there specifically to craft an insincere fake apology. And then once you've done that, well, okay, you get back all the viewers that you might have lost. You have escaped legal responsibility because you paid a mountain of money to the person that you hurt. And then the views start to flatten again. And well, what's next after that? If your views are flattening after you've hurt someone, well, if your views are flattening after you filmed a suicide, well, the next step is to kill somebody. And that is inevitable. So why more law enforcement agencies don't have IPOCs on their radar, I don't know. But the number one thing that is infuriating about IPOCs is the total lack of accountability. They just seem to be able to run their own reality right through your reality without anyone taking them into accountability at all, without anything ever happening. This has been true for a long time. There are stories behind the scenes that go back to the early 2000s, maybe even earlier than that. Some of you might, if you're old enough, remember a creature called Onision, one of the earliest IPOCs. But there have been other people. The most famous example now is the multi-billionaire called Mr. Beast, whose underlings get $500,000 a year, have been known to blast their stereos literally 24 hours a day, so I'm going to fall asleep in a drugged stupor, but I'm paying someone $25 an hour to keep this stereo going. It's not, that noise level is never going to lessen. I'm going to have neighbors coming to my gate. I'm going to have neighbors risking my dogs and my armed services and whatnot to tell me to turn the music down. I'm going to have neighbors calling the cops to tell me to turn the music down. I'm going to make a $50,000 donation to the Fraternal Society of Police Officers, and they're going to look the other way. They're not going to do anything about the noise. And I'm going to keep doing that. If they come to me after 4 or 5 months and say, look, the complaints haven't stopped, and we drove by, and 10 blocks away you can hear this, you got to stop this, well, make it a $100,000 donation, and make it every month. You can buy the police, and in some cases, those underlings, not even the IPOC, the main IPOC themselves, but these IPOCs in training, have seen a neighbor packing up because they are going to move. They're going to leave the neighborhood. They can't hear themselves talk anymore, and there is no law enforcement. So they're going to pack up and leave, and in a couple of cases, those underlings have tracked those people to find out where they moved to, buy an apartment or a house near them, and start the whole thing again, just to torment them. Totally illegal. Gigantically illegal. But there's no accountability at all for these IPOCs. There was no accountability for the worst of them. Mr. Beast has committed more than a dozen felonies. Should be in jail. Certainly should not be a multi-billionaire. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, pure scum of the earth. They are 100% pronounced IPOCs. They are seriously brittle sociopaths. A danger, in other words, to anyone around them. You don't know what they'll do. They have no sense of being in the human community. But there are lesser IPOCs. And one of them is a creature called Jack Doherty, who is in his early 20s and hasn't been human. He looks human, but he hasn't been human since he was 16. He's been an IPOC since he was around 17 or 18. And amazingly, you might think this is leading up to a depressing story here in this Irish stew, but no, amazingly, he was arrested just a couple of days ago. He parked his car in the middle of a busy road in order to make content, and the police told him to move it, and he said, you're in my shot. And they arrested him. And they also found not serious controlled substances in his car, but also serious controlled substances in his car. He could easily go to jail for 5 years. Unless he buys everybody. I don't know, in his case, I don't know how flagrantly, unbelievably wealthy he is. He made his name by intentionally slamming into people as he was walking down the sidewalk, and when they turn on him, he's a tiny little kid, he would literally hide behind his 7-foot bodyguard, who's paid a huge amount of money to follow him everywhere, and then taunt the person from behind that bodyguard, saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I kept waiting. He's very canny, so of course he never made the mistake of slamming into someone who could take out his bodyguard. He never made the mistake of doing that. It's always somebody who won't do that. And even though he chose his victims well, I was always waiting in all of those clips for the victim to tell the bodyguard, get the hell out of my way, I'm going to deck this kid. And if the bodyguard does anything to you, well, then the bodyguard has committed a crime. No one ever did that. He just got away with it. That and a million other things over and over again, always for clicks, always for views. And he got arrested. The police involved were yelling at his face, saying, who the hell are you? I don't have any idea who you are. Why are you acting like you own this city? I admit it's a little bit vindictive, but I will be watching. In hopes that he is not out on bail tomorrow, that he is not making content about his arrest, and that when he faces serious charges, as other IPOCs have occasionally done, he goes down. I'm hoping for that. I admit I'm hoping for that. I know that makes me a bad person, but any time I see an IPOC brush against any kind of actual criminal responsibility, I'm overjoyed at the subject. I'm overjoyed at it. The list of things that Jake Paul has done that would have got any normal person arrested is as long as your arm. And Logan Paul, twice as long. Twice as long. Anyway, that's YouTube. Is that a premier little piece of IPOC? Jack Doherty got arrested. And then we can move on to YouTube. And YouTube, there are two videos that I want to link to you, two that I watch a lot of BookTube, but there were two videos that I wanted to recommend to you. One was really, really good. Michael K. Vaughan did a great overview of the author Robert E. Howard, who, oh no, it wasn't Michael K. Vaughan. It was Liminal Spaces. You'd think it would be Michael K. Vaughan because he's our Robert E. Howard guy, but Michael K. Vaughan is BookTube. Huge on BookTube. Beloved by BookTube. He is not FantasyTube, even though he's read, like I have, he has read a huge amount of the stuff that they love. But he's not really part of their world as far as I can see, whereas Liminal Spaces is a king of FantasyTube. And he did a video on Robert E. Howard that is terrific. Just terrific. And then the other BookTube video is the Valenza Collection. Terrific channel, and he did a recent video in which he announced his utterly crackpot intention to read all of Star Wars. All of it. So, I don't know if he has a game plan. He mentioned, for instance, I think he mentions in his video that that's like 200 books. I have to believe that means he's picking and choosing, because Star Wars literature is well over 1,000 books. It's not 200 books at all. So he might be picking and choosing a certain kind of Star Wars stuff. And I have no idea if he plans on doing it in chronological order, with Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and then moving on from there, or if he's going to do it series by series, or extended universe grouping by grouping. I have no idea. I don't think that he has such a plan, because he mentioned that he really wants to read the new Darth Vader novel, which I read and which was really good. I think he mentions in the video that the writer of that Darth Vader novel, the new Darth Vader novel, wrote an earlier book that he really liked that I haven't read. So I have that to look forward to. I have that to go and hunt out. But either way, what a project. Who knows what conclusions he would come to when he's done. Have any of you ever come close to that? I know that a lot of you love Star Wars books and are big Star Wars fans. Have any of you actually come close to reading all the novels? Oh, I can't even imagine it. I can't even imagine it. And what would that make you think about Star Wars when you were done? I wish him luck. May the Force be with him. I don't think he's going to survive the experience. But I'll leave a link to his video so you can cheer him on yourself. And then we get to the subject of me. And the subject of me is a little touchy this time around. Yesterday, I mentioned SizeGate. Yesterday, in the me section of our Iris Stew video, I mentioned that I bought a new winter coat from Amazon that billed itself as double extra large, and it was not double extra large. It fit me like a second skin. I felt like I was Julie Newmar as the Catwoman, going out in it. It has a nice, voluminous hood, but I'm not Aragorn. I need more than a nice, voluminous hood. I need a coat that closes. And I asked, my question was, is something funny going on with coat sizes? Is that why I'm being misled by these listings? And I got a number of great responses. A number of you wrote and said, some of these things are made in other countries where sizing is different. A number of you knew me well enough I love this rapport. I really do. A number of you knew me well enough to know that I would be horrified at the idea of putting on pants and going to a store to try something on. The obvious solution to this problem would be go somewhere and actually try it on to see if it's the size you want. And you were right. That the very idea of doing that horrifies me. I might have to do that, but the idea horrifies me. It'll either be that, or it'll be ordering something in quadruple extra large, and feeling like a fool the whole time until it comes and actually is extra large. But there was one person amidst that chorus of helpful and slightly teasing advice. There was one person, who shall be nameless, who suggested that perhaps I cut back on the calzones and the mega stuffed Oreos. That perhaps my girth is the problem here, and not size problems at all. Steve looked at that suggestion with withering contempt. I'm doing that right now. I'm simulating that withering contempt. No. No, it's not calzones and mega stuffed Oreos that are the problem here. It's the coat that's the problem. The coat that I ordered that was extra large from the beginning of this year, and the coat that I just ordered, which says double extra large, are the same size. I've been examining them side by side. They're virtually the same. There's certainly not one size difference between them. So I wanted to circle back to SizeGate to make sure that we were all on the same page, that Steve's enormous girth is not the problem. Okay? All right. Now that we've got that clear, we can wrap this up. But I'll be back. We'll do another Irish stew video. I'll see you then. Thank you, too.